let's start with introductions here from the speakers. Onno, over to you. So just quickly on yourself and RSM.
Yes, my name is Onno Adriaansens. I'm heading up the real estate department in the Netherlands. Actually, I'm a tax lawyer, and I also co-chairing the European Real Estate Group. RSM is a audit, tax, consultancy firm. And mainly specialized in real estate.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much. And Sandra, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. First of all, nice to be here. So my name is Sandra Westbrook, one of the founders of Channels. We're a PropTech company based in Rotterdam. So we basically developed a tenant app, mainly for shopping destinations, office buildings, but also the mixed-use properties. And we connect the tenant with the landlord and all its departments, so leasing, facility management, marketing, etc. And currently we are active in approximately 350 destinations in 11 countries.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Ralph.
My name is Ralph de Munnik. I'm head of the Dutch operation of CTP. We would like to call ourselves park makers. We create industrial parks in Central and Eastern Europe. We own about 6.8 million square meters of industrial parks with a mix of logistics, light industrial, lab space, office space, and even housing. As of going public in March, we started expanding towards Western Europe, now actively searching for opportunities in Germany, and I am actively searching for opportunities in the Netherlands, and quite proud to say that we found our first ones, one of them being Amsterdam Logistics City Hub, which we acquired 1.5 months ago. That's being constructed as we speak.
Great, thanks very much. Joost.
Joost Leenertsen, founder of Verisol. We have created in the last 2 years a new model what makes it possible for the big assets to fulfill their ESG goals.
Perfect. Thanks very much. And also, good to have you here, Koen, as well. So quick introduction of you.
Thank you for having me. My name is Koen Kolvoort, founder from Julia. 40 years old, 2 kids, and from 10 and 12 years old. And we have our showroom located in Amsterdam and Rotterdam as well, and our headquarters in Lochem, in the east of Holland. And we do design and build, so we have own architects, interior architects, and everything in between for the realization. So we have project managers, technical drawers, also assembly guys.
Perfect, and you're also seeing to a certain degree some of the trends coming in terms of what people are looking for in terms of spaces, which I think is one of the important things at the moment. Let's just pick up, I mean, maybe let's start with you, Ralph, in terms of the overall investment picture. I suppose, how do you see logistics in the Netherlands at the moment, and how do you see that in comparison to some of the other asset classes in terms of demand from investors?
Well, obviously, logistics has risen to an extreme level yield-wise, breaking records every month, I would almost say, going to three and a little over 3%. I've always been into warehouses, so I think it's logical that it followed the offices. But no, it's been crazy out there, and there's a lot of appetite, a lot of money, and I've been working with Cushman for 15 years before I started at CTP, and I always said it feels like there's a table with a bunch of bags with money at Schiphol Airport, and every investor that comes in just grabs a bag and says, "I want to invest in logistics." So it's limitless. I'm amazed.
Yeah, I mean, there seems to be a huge demand in that. And in terms of the, I suppose, looking at the market overall, and interested to get anybody's views on this, and this doesn't need to necessarily be an investment-focused one, but for those who maybe haven't been in the Netherlands, what's the sense, I suppose, as we're coming out of the pandemic? Are markets freeing up? Are there more people in shops? Are there more people in offices? What's the position from, you can judge that from your own perspective of whether you're back in your own office and what's happening, but be interested just to get everybody's view on that, really, from the sectors that they're working in. I mean, maybe let's start with you, Koen. I mean, what's your sense of that in terms of that return post-COVID?
If you see the retail market where we're also in, for example, the Mall of the Netherlands is a good example. That's all about inspiration. Make the combination between the clicks and the bricks, of course, but inspiration, I think, is the key word. If you see what they provide in the shopping mall over there with customer journey elements and all several kind of brands who promote it there on a flagship store way, I think that is the thing how you should introduce yourself in retail at the moment. And if you focus on office market, what we do as well, you more or less see the hybrid way of working, of course, because a lot of people work from home. I think it will say for 2 days working from home, but yeah, we're all social human beings, so we would like to meet up again. So it should be more a combination with restaurants, coffee bars, fitness elements to meet up with colleagues and to inspire each other again.
Okay, so that's where you see that heading in terms of tackling that demand. Onno, from your point of view, what's happening? Are you seeing people coming back to offices? Are you seeing more international travel? I mean, this is the first time we've really seen lots of people coming back. Are you seeing more of that in the Netherlands, or is that still quite restricted?
No, I think it's going to be hybrid, and that's what we all think, I suppose. We like to travel to see face-to-face meetings. I think that's fine, but I think we're also pretty convinced that we can use Teams and Zoom for meetings, you know, if it's purely business-wise and to discuss, well, contracts or something like that. I think Richard, there's also another topic what we see as RSM, the influx of money. It's more from Asian Pacific than from US, Canada. At the moment, and that's I don't know if we have to worry about that, but the huge investments from Asia Pacific is tremendous. That's incredible. Coming back on the topic Rolf just mentioned, that you just have to go to Schiphol Airport and grab the money. It's more like Asian money at the moment, so that's a trend what we see at the moment.
Okay, interesting in terms of the capital flows. Okay, good. And maybe Sandra, just coming to you, because you know you're probably seeing some of the trends in terms of occupancy coming back and those kinds of things. What are you seeing in terms of the office and particularly the retail markets?
Yeah, I think among our clients we see very different messages. So looking at the shoe and the fashion retailers, they really struggle. I think the online, the e-commerce brands really benefited during the COVID times. But we see a lot of investors that are quite happy with their convenience shopping centers, and they are really looking at creating redevelopment propositions. So they are looking at adding residential to the convenience shopping center, or maybe add it nearby. So then the direct catchment area will obviously benefit from having more local residents, and of course the residential market is really, there's a lot of need for new apartments in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Okay, good. One of the other trends that's been talked about a lot this morning and this afternoon is the impact of ESG, and also that as an accelerating trend. So it'd be interesting to get your perspectives on that as well. I mean, sustainability in general. What's happening in the logistics side? Is there more of a demand for that from tenants as well, to make sure that the logistics sites, the logistics assets are completely sustainable? What's your view on that, Ralph?
I think there's definitely a demand for sustainability and for a sustainable solution. We try to adapt to that, obviously, also towards our stakeholders with the ESG label we have, but also with our parks. We have quite a clear timeline with goals we have ahead of us. At this moment, we are carbon footprint neutral in the operation. We strive to have our first carbon footprint neutral building actually as a whole by 23. And then moving on from that, we are now in the pilot phase to hope to, in the next few years, come up with our first park, which is actually completely off the grid.
Okay, and often the Dutch market is seen as a kind of leader in this particular area. But interesting to get your view on this, because obviously this plays very much into your strength. So I suppose just update us on some of the kind of key trends that you're seeing.
We see in the Netherlands an enormous problem with the electricity, the congestion. So more and more it will be off the grid. And we also see that the demand for renewable energy is absolutely increasing a lot. So the tenants are asking, but mostly the problem is that these big logistic buildings produce much more electricity than they consume, only when there is cooling or they call it a high, I don't know to say it right, but in the logistics they built in a lot of computer systems to pick and they use also a lot of power, but with the electrification of the cars, the demand will rising, but it's not always on time, so the congestion is a big problem. But the demand for this, yes.
And I suppose, has the price of it come down significantly? How much uptake is there? Is that being demanded by occupiers, or is that being demanded by investors? Is it driven by regulation?
It's driven now that finally the investors, the asset managers, sees it more and more than an added value for their yield of the building. So the attractiveness of the building rise with this model because the tenant get lower energy cost.
Richard, if I may, I agree with Joost partly. Because it's not only the environment we're discussing, like the energy transition. ESG stands for, in my opinion, environment, social and governance. So, in my opinion, I think there's too much focus on the energy, the environment thing. And social and governance is also a topic we have to look into. Of course, I'm a tax lawyer, so I really want to look for a tax control framework. That I think that's wise to do so in discussion, to have the discussion with the Dutch tax authorities. But I want to make clear that ESG is not only, sorry to say, Joost, but it's not only environment. I think all the other topics like social and governance have to be in place.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And how much of an impact is that making? Particularly, wellness. Everybody looking for more livability, but also because people talking about both offices, but that will also be the same for all workplaces and places that you shop, that they've got to be places that you want to go to, because people have been used to not going to them, and so therefore you've got to create a desire almost for that. So is that something that is being designed in more? Is that something that you're being asked more about now? Because there's obviously been that change over the past 12 months, and you're designing things presumably that will arrive in the next 5 years, but have to last another 25, 30, 40 years beyond that. So what are you seeing as the big trends there? Is there more in terms of that, creating exciting spaces, vibrant places, more to do with wellness and health?
Yeah, I think it's more high end. So the luxury grade is really high. I think that's the market that grows quite fast now. Yeah, we are in different kind of industries, so it's different to pronounce it in one way. But if we see the holiday houses where we do a lot in, like for Landau Green Parks, for example. They go for wellness, luxury, more than you have at home, a little bit more, and that's where they come for holiday. And we see a big trend that a lot of Dutch people stay in their own country for their holiday. So there are a lot of investors at the moment who invest in holiday houses and projects, and that's interesting for us as well.
Oh, okay, so there's quite a big drive around that. Yeah, go ahead.
If I can add to that, I mean, we as CTP also try to add to that social part within our parks, and I think that's quite unique within the Netherlands because it hasn't been shown quite often, or maybe even nowhere still. That we create the parks we create a social environment, not just housing for the industrial users or for the logistical users, but we also create an ecosystem in which people would like to work. So we add sport facilities to that. We add to our parks clubhouses, which actually hold secondary facilities like a doctor, a small shop, restaurants, flexible workspaces, things like that, to create an environment instead of just creating a bunch of buildings which hold tenants. So I think that's where CTP is way ahead of other companies like us.
Okay, that's interesting, and I know that there's been trends around wellness, especially because of the shortage of employees, and you having to do far more in the logistics world as well as others.
Absolutely, yeah.
I wanted to pick up a little bit just in terms of, obviously, as a kind of tax specialist there. I mean, are there things, particularly in the market at the moment, that investors or people interested in the Dutch market need to be looking at, need to be thinking about?
Yeah. Well, one thing is the increase of the real estate transfer tax. It's been increased from, well, if you talk about non-residential property, it's increased from 6% to 8%. And it doesn't matter if you buy the asset directly as an asset deal or if you buy it by shares in a so-called onroerende zaak lichaam. For residential property, there's still a possibility that you can buy it with a transfer tax of 2%, but only if you are an individual person and you manually use it for your own use. So for real estate investors who wants to invest in residential property in the Netherlands, you have to think about it. It's not the real estate transfer tax 2% anymore, but it's 8%. My opinion is that you have to take that into account in your financial modeling. I even think that you have to re-engineer your financial model. And what we see in practice, investors don't take that sufficiently into account at the moment. So that's, I really think, the business model is a bit upside down at the moment, and not every investor knows about this topic.
Okay, good. Interesting to get that perspective, and I don't think investors are aware of that. But they are now. So that's a good thing. Sandra, I wanted to come to you just picking up on the retail point, the wellness point, the ESG, just to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, I think at this point, really from a lot of clients, we get the request to implement some ESG-related features in our platform. So that means that, for example, they really want to create more awareness among their tenants to drop energy consumption. They really want to create a sense of community, to get really the social aspect of the building as an extra USP towards their future tenants and their existing tenants. We even see some clients within France that are really requesting each of their tenants to report their energy consumption, just to get it visible and to be able to discuss it and mitigate the energy consumption. So it's really a hot topic, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, good. And I'll come back to that a little bit. What I wanted to pick up with you, Ralph, it would be a shame to not talk about what's happening in the logistics market at the moment. Obviously, CTP moving there, which is interesting. How competitive is the market at the moment? There were lots of discussions last year about whether or not the Dutch market would see and logistics would see a kind of positive Brexit bounce because of the proximity to the UK and maybe the need for more nearshoring or more, points on both in the UK but also in the Dutch market. So, what are you seeing as the kind of key trends there in terms of the demand and in terms of the market for logistics?
Well, in all honesty, I think Brexit. We expected more from Brexit. We expected more of a bounce from Brexit. That hasn't really happened. Nevertheless, I think markets are extremely strong, as I just described, on all ends, both investors, tenants, you name it. There used to be the stikstofproblematiek. PFAS, also. that shifted a little bit because all of a sudden people tend to forget about their problem, and it now shifted towards the already indicated electricity problem and shortage of electricity. So that limits the development possibilities there, along with labor, which is quite interesting. And I was told a couple of weeks ago that, for example, labor force will only go down in the Netherlands. And then still municipalities are aiming to create more working spaces and tend to have that as a demand if you want to buy some land, which is basically strange because you're going to create more questions there. So I think we should aim for technology and more aim for ESG to be attracting people.
I agree with Rolf. It's a shame that the municipality is acting like this. By the way, there are some wethouders.
I know.
You have to discuss it. It's a shame.
They're going to, for the first time in years, they took the four together.
But we have to watch out, otherwise we will not be invited next year. So,
and in terms of that, you mentioned their innovation as well. And Sandra, what are you seeing? I mean, obviously, you're a technology company in essence and driving innovation. So what's your sense of that technology innovation, particularly in the Dutch market? How is that driving, I suppose, some of the, I mean, we were talking about winning cities earlier. How's that driving the Dutch markets, and does that make it more investable, do you think, that focus on innovation?
Yeah, I think in general, looking at, for example, retail, but also offices, the tenant really has a better negotiating position than a few years ago. So really offering that extra service, making all the amenities and the data for your tenants available really helps to get tenants on board, because they have a lot of choice these days. So really tapping on this sense of community, making services, amenities accessible, I believe that really helps. And then you can stand out as a landlord. But still, cities will become more compact, obviously, so there will be some necessary redevelopment in this sector. But there are definitely great locations to invest in. But you have to be a bit picky and selective on which locations to choose. Yeah.
Okay, good. Joost, yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm also seeing is a lot with my friends who also owns companies, to get the employees, because they are millennials, they are completely different than us. They have their phone, they have the whole world, and they want only to work, or where is what you're saying, a very nice park with a good environment, where also is the roof for the green, where there is a good contract, what is fair, where they have flexibility, can come to work when I want, and I will do my obligation, but it's a totally different environment than I started. And you was aiming for a big Audi diesel lease car with a computer. Now they have their own computers. You only want to have an in-log, no telephone contract because they have it cheaper. And they want an electronic key door because otherwise the keys are too heavy. It's completely changed.
They nowadays prefer to have one extra day off. So young people who start their career, they're not talking about their lease car or whatever. They prefer to work 4 days to have a better balance of working and private life. That's a topic you really see with new employees.
And they want to work only for companies who's doing well for the ESG goals. That's becoming more and more important.
So that's really driving the employees. So is that then going to have a big change in terms of I suppose the real estate, particularly in Holland, that everything is going to have to be sustainable. Is that also going to drive more repositioning?
All the three ESG goals are the same important. So the whole environment, the whole complex, the whole saying of the company of the tenant, the company everything should be in line. Toch?
Yeah, I agree.
And in terms of the cities, you mentioned there is Holland Metropole here, so a message to the cities. So are they in general supporting that? Do you think, how do you see the role at the moment of government and city government in terms of being able to help you do your business in the Netherlands?
Now, you see the difference. If you see here in the hall back how the maquette Stockholm and Gothenburg is, and how they open and invest from please come on help us to do this problem, and you see how they sit together in the Netherlands.
Obviously, we've just come to the Netherlands for like 6 months, but we've been in various discussions with municipalities, with a lot of them, and every municipality we talk to, with no exception, is really enthusiastic about the introduction of our philosophy. Not saying that we are better than the rest. Obviously, we are, but no. But it's different from the Dutch market. It's different from what has been shown by other companies, just putting down 150,000 square meters of logistical space without a meaning, and that is what appeals to many municipalities, because you start creating an environment instead of buildings.
Okay.
But if I may, it's mainly short term, what I see from the municipality. And that's, in my opinion, a shame. I think it's wise that we have some kind of focus or for the coming 10 years. I was here also in the German investment briefing, and they were discussing about, what's going to happen in about 10 years. And I think that's really wise to think also about these kind of things. And in my opinion, the municipality has also have to think about this kind of legislation for coming 10 years.
For me, it's quite easy, because exactly what our philosophy is not 10 years, it's like 20 to 30 years. Yeah. And if they say, well, prove it, I say, well, come with me to Central and Eastern Europe. Yeah. We've been busy there for like 23 years, and we have never ever sold anything. So we can make agreements with you that we will take care of this business environment for the next 10 to 20 years. So that's, I think, a large added value there.
And are there challenges around, because obviously it's a very densely populated country in general, particularly when you look at those metropolitan areas. So does that make it very difficult to develop, redevelop within the kind of core 4 cities, really, 4 or 5 cities? Is that a real issue?
Well, if I can briefly answer, I believe there are quite some cities within Randstad area where there's a monumental city, and high-rise is quite difficult to add it to the existing portfolio. You really have to look for those locations where it's possible. So I think there is a lack of really good spaces to develop new projects, but maybe someone else has a more complete view and can support it with data, but that's my feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, you see like the suburbs of Amsterdam, like Muiden, for example, it's very attractive at the moment. Weesp, yeah. But also because of COVID, you see a lot of people went out of the cities. So people from the city center of Amsterdam, they go to the east, where I live. So if I see how many people unseen buy houses and apartments, that is insane. Against prices, it's insane. So you see a lot of people are keen to drive those 2 days back to the office in Amsterdam and live in a greenery surrounding in the east, for example, or in the north. So you see a movement because of COVID with the properties.
And I wanted to pick up on one thing in terms of the e-commerce side as well, Ralph, which is obviously huge growth, when I'm looking across Europe, particularly also in the UK, because everybody's been forced to do everything online for a period of time. Is that feeding into bigger growth in the Netherlands in general for logistics? Is that one of the feeding sides, or do you think that will drop back a little bit once everybody can go out again in the same way and life begins to normalise a little? What's your sense of the trajectory of e-commerce in the Dutch market?
My opinion is that that will keep growing, but the entire structure and the logistical structure behind the especially much heard last mile logistics is quite crucial in that. So the entire cycle from production to warehouses and on to last mile and then into the cities, that's crucial how that's going to be operated. And that's, well, reflecting back to why we bought ALC, we think ALC is a good example of the way that providing the city, or at least providing the city with the stuff they need, can be centralized on one space and can be controlled in that space, in that area, and therefore is much more efficient than just spreading out around the city all kinds of logistical hubs, which create chaos instead of a controlled stream of transport.
Okay, good. And in general, are people still focusing mainly on the big cities, or was there a move away into the metropolitan areas as opposed to the cities in terms of residential? We've all mentioned that's kind of future of office. Has that actually made a difference, or because communication in general in terms of public transport is good in the Netherlands, has it not really made a difference? What's your sense of that? Has there been a move out of the city at all?
Well, Koen just mentioned it. It has. So, but there's also another trend where we recognize from a tax perspective that there's a transformation of office buildings to residential, especially in the metropole. So there's an outflux to the eastern part or the southern part of the Netherlands, but also in the metropole we're quite busy. We've got a lot of creative talents as architects, are quite busy with creating more residential places for young people at the moment. I think that's very wise to do so, and hopefully we get more living in a city, not as in, for instance, as Paris, where you have completely blocks with no people living in there. So I hope that this will continue the coming years. Yes.
Okay, good. And Sandra, I just wanted to pick up a point with you in terms of the, digital initiatives, innovation. Can that actually impact the attractiveness of the real estate sector, do you think? I mean, obviously you're putting data into the market, but can it actually make it, is that providing more transparency and making it more attractive as well as from an investment perspective?
Well, in general, I think the landlords that are really embracing innovative solutions, they stand out. They have less difficulties, I would say, to get the right tenants in place. So there are a lot of digital strategies, but if you choose the right ones, I think you can stand out as a landlord. Yeah.
Okay, great. And if anybody's got a question, please do ask. Just let me know. There's around 10 minutes to go or something like that, so do ask. I mean, it would be interesting from my perspective as well, just to get a sense of where you feel. I mean, we mentioned a little bit there around the cities and regulation. But are you seeing more? I mean, you mentioned that you were seeing more Asian investment coming in. But in general, are people seeing more of a focus from international capital coming back in to the Dutch market, given that a lot of the investment and a lot of the deals were really, Dutch in Dutch, German in German, UK in UK. So are we beginning to see more of an international kind of feeling coming back to the market?
Yeah, I think so, but still, it's been going on for years. I mean, we used to have a lot of American money coming in. Now it more or less shifted a little bit towards Asian markets coming up with the money. Nevertheless, what you also see, and I know from a couple of campuses which have been sold recently, that municipalities and also other stakeholders try to influence the owners, the potential sellers, to keep it in-house and to look for opportunities for Dutch investors to keep these kind of campuses which actually contribute to the development of the country as a whole, to keep that all in-house. So, and I think that's a good one.
I even think that the influx didn't leave at all in the Netherlands. I think it shifted from the Americas to the United States to the Asian Pacific, but it will increase in the coming 2 years in a very rapid pace. But it didn't left at all.
Okay, good. There's around just under 2 minutes left, 10 minutes left, which gives us, because there's 5 of you, gives you 2 minutes each, slightly less. Just to say what you think are the kind of biggest trends and the biggest opportunities in the market at the moment from your perspective. So why don't we start with you, Koen? Let's start at that end, and we'll move down this way. Breathing a sigh of relief there, Onno. So what are you seeing as the biggest trends and the biggest opportunities at the moment in the Dutch market?
Yeah, we worked in 4 different ways, but I think in the office market perspective, be creative to reach talent to your company. So create very inspirational surroundings, but provide all those services around your companies or nearby the environment. If I look to the retail market, also inspiration, not only about products, but it's the total perspective that should be fitted for your customer. Holiday houses, where it needs to be high-end market, so wellness, extra services, high-end.
Okay, great. Joost.
Yeah, I'm into that. What we see is also that, of what we hope those the challenges, is that the local municipalities are going to work quicker, especially in changing the brownfields, because we need all those fields to create new parks, new environments, and of course for us the transition of the electricity market will be huge with a lack of connections.
Yeah, no, and that transition is a really interesting one. And certainly in Impact, which we've launched here, we've looked at that a little bit, and there'll be a big focus on that in the next issue, because that will be at COP26. So we'll include some of the discussions that we've had here around that as well, which will be interesting.
What we should do, and what we think, is that Europeans or the Netherlands should be one country, one area, because we are going to lose it. And it's very simple. We have to produce it ourselves. We have to be quicker. Why? I really do not understand. But probably they will have to do a new report and then to discuss it again. But there is hurry. We need quick action.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Ralph, what's your sort of biggest trend and opportunity?
Well, I agree to that, because speed is like more of our middle name. So we're trying to speed up here. Well, obviously I'm judging, and I'm saying this from our own perspective. I think creating sustainable ecosystems around businesses, not only the logistics, but also a mix of functions, I think that's the future, and that's where people will want to live. And I think that's not only, and will want to live and will want to work, but that environment will also contribute to the city and to the region as it is. So that's what we're aiming for. I think that's where the challenges, but also the big chances are. And we hope to be the biggest part of that.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Sandra.
Yeah, what we have seen lately over the last couple of months is that among our 10 biggest clients, 9 out of them were really looking at a more diversification strategy. So they are acquiring residential, but also offices to really be better prepared towards the future. So I think that's an ongoing trend, especially for retail investors. And I think there's a big opportunity for these redevelopment propositions. So really creating these mixed-use areas, not solely focused on retail, but adding residential towers, improving the catchment area for the retail estate, but also adding more dwellings, because we need them in the Netherlands. And I believe the companies that have a great digitalization strategy are better at attracting new tenants towards the future.
Okay, great. Onno.
It's going to be ESG. Perhaps a little bit strange to mention it as a tax lawyer, but ESG is going to be the main value driver in the coming 2 years. I'm convinced about that.
Okay, great.
I agree.
I agree.
Let's vote.
Richard, perhaps you can send us an invite for next year so we can discuss the ESG topic next year.
We will do the ESG topic again. Yeah, and do join us. There's going to be sessions on ESG tomorrow, quite a number of them, as well as impact investment.